The bus moved through the early morning like it had nowhere urgent to be. It was cold still, the kind of cold that sits in the air before the sun decides to commit. Inside, the world was alive. Up front, someone had a radio going. Old Pudgeons, the devotional kind that belonged to early mornings, drifting back through the rows like incense. Near the middle, a group of women were talking the way people talk when they haven't seen each other in months, all at once, over each other, laughing at punchlines that needed no setup. Someone had brought vegetables fresh from the field. The smell of wet earth and open sky filling the air. Morning light came in sideways through dusty windows, landing in long, warm strips across the floor. He stood near the back, one hand on the rail, watching the road, not thinking of anything in particular, just there. Then the bus slowed at a stop, and she stepped onto it. He saw her before she had fully boarded, and in the moment that he saw her, something happened to the world around him. The Pudgeons grew quieter, not suddenly, slowly, the way a tide pulls back from a shore. The women's laughter softened. The smell of earth and green things faded. The light through the windows dimmed at its edges. And the noise of the bus, all that ordinary, beautiful, human noise, began gently to dissolve until there was nothing. No sound, no smell, no movement, no morning. Just her and him and the space between them. But to understand how he got here, you have to go back. 2 years earlier, they had left college and the distance had begun. It was the kind of distance that has weight, not miles exactly, but the specific heaviness of not knowing when you will next see a person you love. They held it together with paper and patience, letters that took weeks to arrive, and sometimes didn't. Phone calls rationed like something precious, because they were. He would dial her number and wait. Sometimes her mother picked up, sometimes her father, and he would go very still inside, say something small, something forgettable, and put the phone down. The words he had saved for her quietly disappearing into the silence of the line. Her letters came in her own handwriting, slightly slanted, unhurried. He read each one more than once. In one of them, she wrote that she missed him more than she knew how to say, that she wanted to see him, that she knew it wasn't possible. And then, almost gently, she mentioned a picture hanging on her bedroom wall. A girl sitting alone, and written above her, "When will you come back?" He folded the letter and put it away. Travel meant money he didn't have, leaves he hadn't earned, planning that needed time he couldn't find. There was nothing to be done. Then one afternoon, walking past a row of shops, he stopped. There it was, hanging in a frame, for sale. A girl sitting alone, and on the wall behind her, "When will you come back?" The exact image, the exact words, in a shop window, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. He stood there a long moment. Then he turned around and went home to pack. He borrowed money from a friend, just enough. He told his office he needed 2 weeks. Then he went to the station. The reservation counter had a queue. He stood in it. When he finally reached the window, the man barely looked up. Quota full, no seats. Those days, there was no other way. You either had a ticket or you didn't. He bought an unreserved ticket and walked to the platform. The coach was crowded, the way only Indian trains are crowded. Bodies against bodies, the air thick and warm. He stood for a long time. Stations came and went. Somewhere down the aisle, a man played a radio. A couple murmured softly about something that didn't matter. Friends slapped cards on a bag balanced across their knees. Vendors appeared at every stop. Tea in clay cups, puffed rice in newspaper cones, meals wrapped in leaves. People bought and ate and laughed. The train moved on. It was crowded, uncomfortable, and completely alive. His friend was waiting at the station, the kind the world makes fewer and fewer of. He asked no questions. He simply opened his home, fed him, gave him a bed, and was genuinely glad he had come. It is only years later that you understand what that kind of friendship costs a person, what it quietly gives. He arrived with nothing for his friend, no gift, no gesture. He wishes now he had brought something, said something more. But that is the thing about people who give without keeping score. They make it very easy to forget that you should. He slept that night in his friend's home, 20 miles from her town. He did not know if she was there. He had no mobile phone. Neither did she. There was no way to find out. The next morning, he got on the bus toward Koraput anyway. And now we are back on that bus, back in that morning, back in that noise and warmth and life, back to the moment the bhajans faded, back to the moment the world went quiet, back to her. She boarded. She found a place near the back. She did not look around. He moved carefully, quietly, further toward the back. He didn't want her to know yet. He wanted one more moment of watching her as she was before she knew. He sat where he could see her face. She was looking out the window, or at nothing in particular. Her expression was the kind that belongs to someone whose thoughts are far away, a little sad, a little still, turned quietly inward. She wasn't fidgeting. She wasn't watching the road. She was just there, inside her own silence, in the middle of that loud and living bus, missing him. And he was right behind her. For 30 minutes, he did not close his eyes once. He just watched her, the way she sat, the way she didn't move, all of it. His eyes were wet, and he let them be. He had traveled hundreds of miles, a borrowed sum, a sleepless train, an unreserved seat, an uncertain bus. And she was right there, and she didn't know. He let her not know for 30 minutes more. When the bus stopped at Koraput, she stood and got off. He got off behind her, staying out of her line of sight. Then he turned to his friend, who had sat beside him the whole way, who had watched him watch her, who had said nothing, and said quietly, "Go to her. Tell her I'm here." His friend walked over, said her name, said, "Santosh is here." She didn't believe it. Of course she didn't. Then she turned, and he stepped into her view. They did not hug. This was a public place, and some things were understood without being said. But her eyes found his and held them. Her hands found his hands. Their breath arrived in the same air at the same moment for the first time in a year. He said to her, and he still remembers the exact words, "You told me you were waiting. You told me you were crying. I could not take that anymore. I thought, if I don't go now, I will never go." The sun was full over Koraput by then. They walked slowly toward her hostel, the dust of that town under their feet, the afternoon light doing what it does. It had been a year. It had felt like a lifetime. A borrowed sum, an unreserved seat, an uncertain bus, and the universe, being unreasonably kind, put her at the stop.